the Elections Clause, constitutional interpretation, and congressional exercise. This is really a hearing that our committee should have had before we had hearings on elections administration, before the drafting and introduction and passage of H.R. 1, and before the drafting and introduction of H.R. 4 last Congress. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution clearly gives states the primary role in establishing the, and I quote, the times, places, and manners of holding elections for senators and representatives. Under the Constitution, Congress has a purely secondary role in this space. This is evident from the way it's written. The states are listed first, and Congress is listed second. Under H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, Congress is clearly outside these constitutional bounds. These bills prevent any state from establishing the time, place, and manner in which elections are held by establishing a nationalized election system run by bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And while we're on the subject of H.R. 4, the Supreme Court ruled this month that states have the power to protect the integrity of their elections through thoughtful, considered legislation, making it easy to vote and hard to cheat. In the case against Arizona, the court upheld the state's power to ban the use of third-party ballot harvesting. Justice Alito's opinion stated, quote, one strong and entirely legitimate state interest is the prevention of fraud. Fraud can affect the outcome in a close election, and fraudulent votes dilute the rights of citizens to cast ballots that carry appropriate weight. Fraud can also undermine public confidence in the fairness of elections and the perceived legitimacy of announced outcomes, end quote. Public confidence in our elections is something I, as ranking member on the subcommittee on elections, am focused on. And ranking member of the committee, Rodney Davis, is leading the way with his Faith in Elections project. We've seen this as an issue in North Carolina. The results of that congressional race was tossed because of fraud resulting from ballot harvesting. California has had issues as well. We've seen it in Madison, Wisconsin. And despite the well-documented fraud cases, the fraud issues with ballot harvesting, H.R. 1 legalizes this practice nationwide, and according to Democrats, prohibition of ballot harvesting is a state of discrimination. Fortunately, the Supreme Court ruled this is not the case. Instead, the court ruled the intent and the totality of the state's voting system matters. Justice Alito noted that merely implementing voting structures intended to bolster voter confidence, such as rules to increase ballot integrity, does not equal discrimination, which is what my Democratic colleagues continue to claim. Not only does the recent Supreme Court ruling invalidate my Democratic colleagues' claim, but this committee's record has demonstrated this as well. During multiple hearings, my Democratic colleagues have claimed that voter ID is used to suppress votes. However, the data clearly disputes this. Contrary to Democratic claim, voter ID requirements of lowering voter turnout, states with voter ID laws saw record turnout in the 2020 election. And I thought I would take this opportunity during a remote hearing to take everyone on the committee to rural America. While I haven't found a Kinkos, the Vice President of the United States may be very interested to learn that I can confirm folks in rural Wisconsin and rural communities across the United States have running water, have electricity. And I found this new invention that I don't think was there when Vice President Biden first ran for Senate, but is available now here in rural America, and it's called a camera phone. It's amazing. It has a camera and a phone, and it can actually take a photo of an ID and can be submitted electronically. Shocking, I know. Now, it may not have come to San Francisco, so Vice President Kamala Harris may not be as familiar, but I encourage everyone to check out these new camera phones that can be used to provide enhanced integrity in our elections for people voting by mail remotely in rural America. And additionally, the data used by Democratic witnesses is flawed. During a hearing earlier this year, Democratic witness Dr. Nazita Lajvardi stated that minority participation in the 2016 election was less than the 2012 election and claimed this was due to voter suppression. However, she admitted that her analysis relied on self-reporting voter information from online surveys to reach her conclusion, not a scientific poll, and essentially reverse engineered her desired result. And further, during that committee hearing, I pointed out that her study did not control for the difference in candidacy between Barack Obama and the historically terrible candidacy of Hillary Clinton. While my Democratic colleagues invited many college professors to participate in these hearings on HR 1 or voter suppression. They invited no election officials who actually have administered elections. Republicans, on the other hand, have invited multiple election administrators, including our witness today, the Kentucky Secretary of State, Michael Adams, and I'm appreciative of you joining us here. And together, these individuals have decades of experience in election administration, and each one of them have or will testify about how bad HR 1 is for states. They've repeatedly stressed that mandates throughout HR 1 will not work in their jurisdiction. They'd be incredibly costly to implement and could even make elections less secure. In contrast, the only two election officials the majority invited had never actually administered elections prior to testifying. It's my hope that after a thorough review of the committee's record and the recent Supreme Court decision, Democrats will abandon their efforts to circumvent the Constitution and nationalize our elections. It's clear our election system works best when those closest to the people are setting the rules for administering the elections, not unelected bureaucrats in Washington, just as our founding fathers wrote in Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution. Madam Chairwoman, I yield back. Thank you.
The gentleman yields back, and all other members